You want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered. And this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't going to be that fun. Everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Again, great to have you with us today. I want to emphasize what I emphasized on Monday. We've got a lot of things going on. Going to be changing with the podcast. You will not want to miss Friday's Finest. I'm going to give you some updates hopefully on Friday. What's coming up. We've got a lot with the campaign, a lot going on. So we're going to be making some changes, but hopefully we'll make it very smooth for you to find us and keep listening and watching however you may get it here on the podcast. But I did want to let you know this, and we'll have more to say about this on Friday's Finest with Chip and James as we get to Friday. But I wanted to just remind you that we're going to be having some changes, changing platforms and some other things. So just be aware of that as we move forward here. Also, I want to, if you still want to get me right now, you can still get me on the DougCollinsPodcast.com. We're still going to be working that out. And there's an email link there that you can send for anything that you might need there. So with that, after the commercial break, we're going to come back. We got 2 or 3 things I want to talk about. Really, the debate from last night. It's a Wednesday edition of the podcast. We got the debate. We got disaster relief in the Carolinas and Georgia and Florida. And then we've also got big news about Israel. So right after the break, we'll be right back. You might have heard Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of the box stores or the shopping channels as the way they used to. They've been part of the cancel culture, so they want to pass the savings directly on to you by having a $25 extravaganza. When Mike started MyPillow, it was just one product company. With the help of his dedicated employees, they now have hundreds of products. Some of you may not even know about that. So to get the word out, I want to invite my listeners to check out the $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-pillow use My Pillows are just $25. My Pillow sandals, $25. There's 6-pack of towel sets, $25. Brand new 4-pack dish towels. You guessed it, just $25. And for the first time ever, the My Pillows with all new Giza fabric, just $25. All orders over $75 will see free shipping too. This amazing offer won't last long, so go to mypillow.com and use the promo code Collins, that's COLLINS, or call 800-986-3994 today. That's promo code Collins. Hey, inflation's at a 40-year high. The stock market looks more uncertain than ever. The new central bank digital currency is on its way and could be the government's ultimate surveillance tool against Americans. It looks like the government is playing games with your savings and retirement. So what are you going to do to help protect yourself? Did you know that you can have physical gold and silver into your IRA or 401k with zero tax or penalties? Millions of Americans are doing this right now for protection, and you should think about it too. The company I trust and recommend is Preserve Gold. They will go all over your options and make sure the process of acquiring precious metals is simple and easy. So if you're looking to help protect your retirement with a trustworthy company, request your free investment guide from the experts at Preserve Gold. Preserve Gold is accredited by the Better Business Bureau, and they have hundreds of 5-star reviews, so you know that you're in good hands. Just text Collins, COLLINS, to 50505. And an exclusive offer for my listeners, they'll get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualifying purchase on a retirement account rollover. So don't wait. Text Collins to 50505 today and get your free gold and silver investment guide and take the first step. Again, text Collins to 50505 to get your free guide from the good people at Preserve Gold. Okay, let's just hit the debate last night. For the most part, most of the time, vice presidential debates do not matter all that much. Although it is interesting that some of the most memorable lines from these what are called debates have came from the vice presidential race. I go back to Lloyd Bentsen and Dan Quayle many years ago, and the famous line where Quayle tries to say something about Kennedy, and Bentsen says, "I knew John Kennedy. John Kennedy was a friend of mine, and you're no John Kennedy." We still remember that today, and that's been almost 38 years ago. So 36 years ago. So we look at these things, and these are the kind of things that come up in these question and answer sessions. Let me just give you my sort of hot takes, if you would, about the question and answer session last night. Number one, from a conciseness and from a perspective of answering in what I'll call deliverable policy moments, Vance had the edge here. This was his, I said this on Monday. I say it again now. This was Vance's environment, not Walz's environment. Vance has gotten very good at the close quarter question answer sessions, the quick comebacks, the pivoting on his feet. He's very good at that. He has been tearing up the Sunday shows for a month now. I'm not even sure. It's amazing to me that they still have him back on. I think they've actually decided not to have him. It seems like not having him back on because he was just tearing up the reporters on the Sunday shows. They were, going at it, and he would just fire back at them. So this was his environment. So number one, he succeeded in that environment. Walz, if you wanted to give him any win from last night, it would be to portray the lovable uncle that everybody loves but nobody understands. Okay, there's one thing to be thought of as folksy. There's another thing to be thought of, as I said on an interview earlier today, to be thought of as somebody in a overalls and on the Hee Haw cast from the 70s. That's the way he came across at times, and gets he even admitted in his answers, I just ramble on sometimes, and I can be a knucklehead, and I can say things that ain't true. And he was called on it. The one time he was sort of called on it from the moderators was this idea that he was in Tiananmen Square during the riots. He was not. He was there later in the summer, and he finally just said, no, I wasn't. That was just a mistake. And they just blow by it. It is amazing to me how these debates and these question and answer times come about. CBS had said in its rules the moderators would not fact check. Well, somebody forgot to tell the moderators, because they not only gave harsher pointed questions at Vance in what they would propose as weaknesses, and also fact checked. And Vance had enough. He actually fact checked them back, and they were panicking, saying, we got to get to other questions. They didn't want to hear anything he said. And then they actually cut his mic off. Again, a moment that is like, are you kidding me? You're cutting their mic off, and they're the ones correcting you after you tried to correct them. These debates are going on and on and on in senses that you really, people are seeing the 3-1. I think the real interesting point here, and I've seen this on some others for those maybe watching last night. If you really watched last night, I think the general consensus among many is if you watched the debate last night, you probably already decided who you're voting for. I think there was a lot of discussions, last night about, is there, going to be a moment in which independents watch this? And the answer is no. I think we're actually seeing that. And I think that's going to come in the next few weeks. If you remember, and you can go back and pull the podcast episodes, and you can go back and find the podcast episodes from when I was talking about the last month being the deciding factor. Well, we're now in the last month. We're a little over 30 days away. And I believe still it would have been it with Biden and Trump. It's going to be with Biden, and it's going to be with Harris and Trump now. That these last few weeks, people are going to say, okay, after all the posturing, all the ads, all the hit pieces, everything else, they're really going to have to come down to who I feel comfortable with. I believe this is a 1980, 1992 kind of moment in which the elections were decided in the last few weeks. And it came down to the American voter, that independent, that maybe swing voter, however you want to call them, maybe don't be in love with Donald Trump, but they don't love Vice President Harris either. And they got to come down and say, who do I want for 4 more years? And what I have found, at least historically, in those kind of elections, it is the challenger that they choose. They chose Bill Clinton and they chose Ronald Reagan. So I'm not being partisan here. The race with Carter in 80 was extremely close. And it came down to the last 7 days. And Carter lost in what would be looked at as a landslide. But up until about 7 days before, it was a virtual tie in the polls. People broke late in that. They decided they could not put up with 4 more years of Jimmy Carter and the things that we've been going through. 1992, take it a step further. You've had 12 years of Bush and Reagan. Clinton came on. He gave his folksy Arkansas governor. He was just everywhere. He was happy. Him and Al Gore. And he made the comment. He said, "Are you better off?" He said, "Or do you want to wake up the morning after and see a new horizon? Do you want to see a new beginning? Don't stop thinking about tomorrow," was the theme song there. And I think that was, something that was decided gut feeling, emotional feeling in those last few days. Now, look, Bush had hurt himself in the campaign by going back on the no tax pledge. There was other issues where he got caught not knowing, the price of milk and all those kind of things. But really, I think at the end of the day, it came down to an understanding of, does the American people feel good where they're at? And I think this is where, for conservatives, we have to get out and sell the message that this is the amnesia ticket on the Democrat side. Harris and Walz want you to forget everything that's happened in the last 4 years. They don't want you to remember all the bad decisions she's made. They don't want you to remember that inflation is high now because of them. They don't want you to remember the gas and oil and these prices are higher because of you right now, because of themselves right now. They don't want you to know that the world is engaged in wars, which we're going to talk about Israel here in just a minute, that they could have helped if they'd have had a stronger foreign policy or were better on the world stage, the Afghanistan withdrawal. They don't want you to think about the special gimmicks and plans that they paid and DEI and all of the other issues that have gone along, that they have just trampled on social issues for the last few years. They don't want you to remember that, because I just called it the amnesia ticket. And I think people are going to wake up here in October, and if conservatives are selling the proper message, if conservatives are talking about an open border, if they're talking about the fact that it wasn't open under Trump, if they're talking about the fact that we're now engaged in world conflicts in Israel and in Ukraine and unsettledness in China and Taiwan, that none of that existed under Donald Trump, that was not put down, then you can see that there's a difference there. If you look at our gas and diesel prices, you can see that they're higher than they should be. You can see that energy independence that we had has now become energy dependence. These are all things that I think can swing an election at the last. Now, again, it comes down to how people are going to feel. So conservatives, you have to give your friends and your neighbors reasons to know that there's a reason they feel uncomfortable. The reason they're answering the questions on the economy, on the questions of direction of country in a negative format is because they don't feel it, but some of them may not know actually how to act that out, because the mainstream media has done a very good job of making Harris appear to not be connected again to this administration. As I said, it's the amnesia ticket, and we've got to actually remind people of what they've been doing. So the debate last night, I think at the end of the day, some people call it a draw. I think Vance won probably on the actual substance and policy. If Walz was wanting to come across as this, likable, bumbling coach from high school, and then maybe that's what he succeeded at. At the end of the day, do I think it moved the needle very much? Probably not. The two that they're looking at, that most people are looking at, is Donald Trump and Vice President Harris. And until, that's the main discussion of this election season going forward. So as you look ahead, what I do believe, and I'll end with the debate discussion with this, I think J.D. Vance did a very good job of framing the bigger issue, and that is, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And the answer is no, you're not. In any, objective look at the state of our economy, which is, there's areas in our economy are growing, but when you look at it from the perspective of a person's pocketbook, then they know that it's not better. When you look at the border, it is open. They see the drug abuse, and they see the the fentanyl coming into our country. They see what's going on in the world. That is where I think the next few weeks are going to be so important for people to influence their friends, influence their neighbors, and to get them out to vote, and also to be active about bringing other family members and other friends along with them. So that's the debate. Let's move into this thing that's affecting elections here in the Southeast right now, and it's going to affect the discussion because it's made very difficult campaigning and other things, because you just don't need to campaign when people are fighting literally for their lives. And coming all the way up through the Big Bend area, Perry, Florida, all the way up through 75, east of 75 in the state of Georgia, Valdosta, Waynesboro, the other state, the Waycross, Dublin, Statesboro, these others, all the way up through Augusta, Savannah, that all were hit on the coast in Georgia. They were all hit and damaged. And then you go up into North Carolina, which is in upper South Carolina, which has gotten literally devastation right now. I'm just going to say this, please. We posted on our social media sites many times, how you can help and go to help people if you can get up there. I live closer to the North Carolina side of this disaster, and believe me, I'm hearing from them up there that they're in need of all kinds of help. And Biden finally is going in. Harris is trying to get to Augusta, but they're not giving leadership. One of the things that I'm very concerned about, and it's been confirmed up until this point, when Katrina hit New Orleans, Bush and Cheney, they activated the Army and they activated Air Force active duty units to help in the recovery. Why in everything that is holy have we not activated the 82nd Airborne out of Bragg over in Fayetteville? They're not that far away. They can get there. They've got special equipment. They know how to get in and out of bad areas. They've got the mechanical equipment. They can help build, move some of these roads that have been washed out of the way so that you can get actual vehicles over the road so we can get to these people who are in desperate need of just the basic necessities of life right now. They have no power. They have no water. They have no, phone service. They have no cell service. They have no internet service. But no plan from the federal government to put Starlink, to put anything else up there that can help them out. And some of these folks are going to be isolated literally for months, if not a year, because you've lost roads completely. Look at the pictures, folks. You do not replace roads that have been washed away for miles at a time on the side of a hill just that easily. You can't do it. I mean, it's going to be a Herculean process to get some of these roads back and some of these bridges back in these valleys and low-lying areas up in Asheville and to the west and to the northwest and of where they're at. It's just not something that can be fixed by waving a magic wand or even sending billions of dollars, which is what they're going to need. You've also got to have time. You've got to have people. You've got to have the resources. And why the 82nd Airborne and other assets for the military have not been called in on humanitarian issue, even for a short time right now, is mind-blowing to me, with their communication abilities and able to get food and water to where people need it. It's just mind-boggling. Tied into that, you have a port strike going on. Pete Buttigieg is transportation secretary, is more worried about giving Tim Walz a debate partner than he is actually trying to solve the longshoreman and port strike, which is going to cripple the United States if it lasts more than a week or so. I mean, you're going to have jobs shut down. You're going to have truck drivers shut down. Truck stops begin to shut down. People, are not going to be able to get food, the imperishable foods that come in. 75% of all bananas coming into this country come in through now what is shuttered ports. And, Buttigieg and the Biden administration have basically sided with the unions. I mean, this is not even a negotiating ploy now. They just side with the unions. And, and the thought is that what they're going to do is they're going to side with the unions for a week or so and then come in the middle of October, and the unions are going to say, thank you so much, Vice President Harris and President Biden, you saved the day, thinking that's going to, gain voters and gain influence for their union in this. And right now, that's just the wrong way to go about this. There's ways to sit down at the table. The Biden administration should have had them in Washington, D.C., sitting at the table for the last few weeks to work out a deal here. And instead, they chose not to. And now you have strikes at our major ports all up and down the East Coast, from Maine to Texas, all the way around the Gulf Coast. So this is just a disaster way to have, and you're seeing it in the disaster response to the hurricane that is coming through now, and getting power back up, getting restored. But yet we're not using all the full assets of the American government to actually make this happen. So again, if you can help any way you possibly can. These folks in Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas, you got to help them, because especially in the Carolinas, and even in some places in Georgia and others, they're just not going to be able to rebuild, if ever, in some of these areas. So please be aware of that. The last thing I want to touch on here for just briefly is, I always say that in presidential campaigns, national affairs and domestic affairs come first. Foreign affairs and issues overseas have to be pretty dramatic to make an effect on the movement of a presidential campaign. Well, it's getting closer and closer to that in Israel right now. Israel is already has a ground incursion into Lebanon, taking out the Hezbollah tunnels and undercutting their capability to fight back. We have not had a chance to talk about it, but they use things as simple as pagers to wound or injure or maim or kill Hezbollah fighters. They're using walkie-talkies to blow up in the same way. This is all designed to show that Hezbollah cannot win this. They've also killed the Hezbollah leader, then they killed the acting leader. If I was one of them, I would not raise my hand to become leader of that organization. But then yesterday, Iran launched ballistic missiles into Israel. Most all were caught by the defense shield systems in Israel that we have helped pay for. Just like, unfortunately, the rockets that were being shot at them were paid for with a lot of taxpayer dollars from the United States when Joe Biden lifted the sanctions, gave them, $300+ billion back, and have never held them accountable for the actions that they're doing through surrogates in Yemen, in Gaza, and in Lebanon. And right now, it appears to all parties that Netanyahu has just decided, look, we've done this for so long, we're tired of it. We're going to take this out. We're tired of living in quote, the ring of fire in which they fire upon us day after day after day after day. They don't respect our right to exist, and we're tired of it. And I think there'll be a response. There was over 180 ballistic missiles shot at Israel yesterday afternoon, and I'm just waiting now for the Israel response back into Iran. And I believe that when they do, it will be devastating to what they're going to try in Iran, and how Iran's going to just have to face it. This is, again, goes back to a weakness that we've seen in this administration. They cannot help but try to stumble out. Even last night in the debate, we support Israel all the way, but yet at the same point in time, will not, continue the conversation that, the Hamas forces are okay. And then why are we still doing this, and trying to get Israel to stop when Israel has been the one under attack constantly for the last, 70 years of their existence. They've never known a time of true peace because the nations right around them have all said that they do not recognize Israel's right to even be there to start with. So, look, I hope that Israel does what it has to do, with or without the United States. They need to do what they need to do to keep their people safe. And at the end of the day, I don't think anybody would fault them for that. It is sad, though, that we can't get a unified American response here. And I love how Harris and Biden keep telling, what do you tell Iran? Don't. Well, guess what? They haven't listened to you at all. But I tell you who our strongest ally is over there, and it's Israel. And we need to be supporting them and making sure that they have the equipment and capabilities to do what it is. I saw Harris in an interview just yesterday. Vice President Harris said that we'll always make sure that Israel has the right to defend itself from these attacks. Well, Madam Vice President, wouldn't it be also better that they also have the resources to attack those who are attacking them, instead of always having to depend on the defense forces of and their missile defense shields and the Iron Dome and Arrow and other Sling? These are all things that protect them defensively, but they need to have all application and ready to go offensively as well, and take out the terror sites and take out these terrorists who are nothing but scum that terrorize other people and want to impose their brand of Sharia law on the rest of the world. And they're all funded right out of Iran from the largesse that the Harris and Biden administration gave to them by lifting sanctions and giving them $300 billion back. This all can be traced back to their rise back out of the basically gutter that Trump had them in from all the sanctions that we had, that they could no longer keep their own people quiet. Well, when Biden freed up the sanctions, freed up the resources, they took them again and did not build up their own country. They chose to use that money to go around the world spreading terror, especially in the Middle East. So a lot happening these days, some of which will affect the presidential election, some will not. But just keep watching and keep fighting as we go forward here. With that, this ends the Wednesday episode. We'll be back for Friday. Remember, Friday's going to be a very special episode. You don't want to miss Friday's Finest this week on the Doug Collins Podcast. We'll see you next time.